Hello folks, and welcome to Tiny Games Lab tutorial. This time is going to be the second tutorial about checkboxes. So what I want to teach you is how to make these little checkboxes here. In the last tutorial I taught you how to make this one, the ugly one. Now I'm going to teach you how to make this one, which has this little cool slider. And the next tutorial I'm going to teach you how to make the same one, but with this little drag effect on the slider. Okay, so I'm going to start with the empty project. All I have here is a room, which is 400 by 400, this little purple color here, and a creation code. On the creation code, I have set game speed to 30 frames per second. If you're running this on Game Maker Studio 1.4, all you have to do is set 30 on your room speed and you're fine. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating a script. Okay, this is going to be an easing script. Okay, so let's give it a name. I'm going to call it script is out. Okay, and the code of the script, I want to start with the reference to the script is going to be script is out. It's going to take into time and maximum time. And just so you know, I got this easing formula from gizmo.com/easing. It's all based on Robert Pinner formulas. Okay, so this formula is going to take variables t, d, c, and b. And these are going to be all local variables, and b is going to be equal to 0, that's our initial value for the easing effect. C is going to be equal to 1, that's our final value or change in value, so I'm going to change from 0 to 1 in this easing effect. T is going to be argument 0, it's our time, current time, and d is going to be argument 1, that's our maximum time to do the easing effect. Okay, so with that we just use this little formula here that's going to check for if t is less than 1 and return this. Okay, easing is very easy. You just follow these formulas, you copy and paste, and you have this little cool effect. Okay, so it's going to be checking for in and out effect. Okay, and that's basically it for a script. Okay, so let's close this script out, and let's start by adding some sprites. So create sprite from image, and the first one I'm going to use is this one. That's the background. Okay, so let's start by adding a name to this. Let's call this sprite slide background. Let's set origin, or I'm going to set 32 and 32. Let's add a new sprite, create sprite from image also. And let's select this uncheck checkbox. That's going to be our button. Let's call it sprite all. And let's set also the origin, 32 by 32, looks good. Okay, and let's add an object. So create a new object. Let's give it a name. Let's call it object checkbox. And I want to do a creation code for this object. So I'm going to start by setting my control to false also. So this is what is going to control if it's clicked or not, the checkbox. I want to set a position to 0, so that's the initial position when it's not checked, so that's what makes it slide left and right. And RGB, it's going to be our initial color, is going to be 55, okay? So I'm going to use that for R, for G, and for B. I'm going to set my time to 10, okay? So this is going to be the initial time, or the number of steps that needs to animate, so it's going to be animated within 10 frames. And I'm going to set my counter to time, because I want it to start as a finished animation. I don't want to start the room with the animation starting. Okay, and I'm going to add a step event now. Let's remove this, and on my step event, the first thing I'm going to check is if I have clicked this button or this checkbox or radio button. So first I'm going to check if the mouse button has been pressed and if the position of the mouse X and mouse Y is on top of this instance. Okay, if it is, I'm going to first switch around the control. So if it's true, it's going to be false. If it's false, it's going to be true. I'm going to set my counter to 0. That's just to reset and start the animation again. And then I'm going to have a little code here that's going to be checking if the counter is less than time, which means I have to animate. Okay, so if it is less than time, I'm going to add 1 to counter. So it's going to be adding 1 each step until it hits 10. And I want to check if the control is true, so it means that the button has been clicked already, and I'm unclicking it when I'm unchecking it. Actually, I want to set my position to 64 times screen is out. Okay, and it's going to be taking counter and maximum time, which is time. Okay, so this is going to be easing the position to 64. From 0 to 64 is going to be easing it the position. And RGB is going to be 55 plus 200, also easing out this effect. So the G and the B color is going to be going from 55 to 255 with this easy in and out curve. If it is not checked, so I want to click it actually, I'm going to set the position to 64 minus 64, so I'm going to be moving all the way to 0, okay, with this easing effect. And RGB is going to be the same thing, so 255 minus 200, so I'm going to be easing from 255 to 255, okay. And let's just close this out, and we're done here. And the last thing I want to do is set up a draw event. So let's find it here. Okay, took me a while. And on my draw event, I want to draw the background, and I wanted to draw it a little bit darker than the foreground. So the background is going to be my slider, So I'm going to draw my sprite slider, sub image 0 on my X and Y positions, scale 1 to 1, rotation 0. On color, I want to make color RGB, and I want that add my RGB, so RGB minus 20 to make it a little bit darker on both red, green, and blue channels, and alpha equals to 1. And I want to draw now the little ball, okay, the little button, and I want to draw sprite extension again, sprite wall 0. My X plus position, my variable, my Y, 1, 1, 0, and I want to make color RGB again, but this time I want to use just RGB, and alpha equals to 1, okay? So I'm pretty much done here with this. All I have to do is set up the sprite to this slider so we can check the collision of the clicking event. And now I want to do the radio button. To do the radio, I'm going to duplicate this. I want to change the name around to O radio checkbox. Okay. I want to go to my step event. I want to add a line here. Okay, so basically I'm going to add a with statement with object index. So all objects of O radio checkbox are going to be checked. And I want to do an if statement. So if it's not the one that it's calling this, so it's not the one that has been clicked, and the control is true, so it's something that we have to turn off the control. Because it's a radio, you only have one control on at a time. I'm going to set the counter to 0. So I'm going to reset the counter to run the animation. And I'm going to set the control to false, because that's what I want, okay? And let's just close this if statement. And that's basically it. Let's add these objects to the room. Checkbox, and checkbox, and checkbox. I'm going to add the radios. 1, 2, 3, let's do 4, no? 4. And let's try it out. Okay, so you can see that I have these little checkboxes here. I can have on and off as I want. And I have these little radios, which only allow for one of them to be on at a time. Okay, I hope you liked this tutorial. If you liked it, please click on that like button. If you want to be subscribed to my channel, please click on that subscribe button. And I hope to see you in the next tutorials.